First contact and derision. The displacement wave hit the stellar observatory station Gamma without warning. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched as her coffee mug vibrated across the desk, its contents defying gravity for a split second before splashing onto the pristine white floor. The station's quantum sensors screamed in protest as reality itself seemed to bend around them. Report. Maya barked into the comm, already sprinting toward the central observation deck. The corridors of humanity's most advanced deep space station blurred past her as warning lights pulsed in sync with the wailing alarms. Unknown vessel just dropped out of. Something, Captain. Lieutenant Wei Chen's voice crackled through the speaker. It's massive. Nothing like we've ever seen before. Maya burst onto the observation deck, skidding to a halt as her eyes locked onto the view beyond the reinforced transparent steel windows. The alien ship hummed against the backdrop of stars like a frozen aurora borealis, its crystalline surface refracting light in impossible patterns. It dwarfed their station, making humanity's proudest achievement in space exploration look like a child's toy in comparison. All departments, battle stations, Maya ordered, though she knew their weapons would be useless against something of that scale. Dr. Harrison, what are our sensors telling us? The chief scientist's fingers danced across his holographic interface. The energy readings are off the charts, Captain. They're using some form of dimensional manipulation we've never encountered. It's like they're partially phased into multiple planes of existence simultaneously. Before Maya could respond, every screen in the observation deck flickered to life. The image that appeared made several crew members step back involuntarily. The being on the screen was vaguely humanoid, but its body seemed to be composed of living crystal and swirling energy. Its face was a geometric pattern of light that shifted and reformed as it spoke. Greetings, primitive ones. The alien's voice resonated through the station speakers, somehow managing to sound both melodious and condescending. I am Arkshan Zixtal of the Syntheri Convergence. We have come to evaluate your species' potential for elevation. Maya straightened her uniform and stepped forward. I am Captain Maya Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Command. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization. The crystalline being's patterns flickered in what might have been amusement. How quaint. Your species still identifies with your planet of origin. Tell me, Captain, have you managed to grasp even the basic principles of quantum manipulation yet, or are you still confined to your crude three-dimensional understanding of reality? We have made significant advances in quantum mechanics and, Maya began, but the alien cut her off with a sound like chiming bells. Yes, I'm sure you believe so. Just as a child believes their crayon drawings are masterpieces. The being's form shifted, expanding to fill more of the screen. We have been observing your civilization for some time now. Your crude attempts at faster-than-light travel, your primitive space stations, your laughable weapon systems, all barely worthy of notice. Dr. Harrison caught Maya's eye, discreetly indicating his sensor readings. Something about the alien vessel's energy signature was unusual, different from what their theoretical models predicted for advanced dimensional technology. Maya gave him a slight nod, understanding his unspoken message. Keep them talking. If we are so primitive, Maya said carefully, why reveal yourselves now? Because, dear Captain, your species has reached a critical juncture. Your quantum experiments, while amusingly basic, have begun to draw attention. The Convergence has decided to guide your development, to ensure you don't harm yourselves or others with your clumsy fumbling at forces beyond your comprehension. Maya felt her jaw clench, but kept her diplomatic smile in place. And how exactly do you propose to guide us? We will establish an outpost in your system. Your leaders will be contacted with our terms. Your scientific development will be supervised. Consider it a kindness. We're simply ensuring the children don't play with matches. As the alien spoke, Dr. Harrison was frantically recording data, his eyes widening as patterns began to emerge in the readings. Whatever the Syntheri were using for their dimensional manipulation, it wasn't following expected theoretical models. It was as if they were brute forcing their way through dimensions rather than working with the underlying principles. "And if we decline your generous offer?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. The alien's crystalline form pulsed with colors that somehow managed to convey both amusement and threat. "Decline? Oh, my dear primitive, you misunderstand. This is not an offer. This is a courtesy notification. Resistance would be..." The being paused, its patterns forming what might have been a smile, inadvisable. After the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. "Dr. Harrison, what did you find?" The scientist looked up from his displays, excitement barely contained in his voice. "Captain, their dimensional technology. It's advanced, yes, but it's also inefficient. It's like they discovered a way to brute force dimensional travel ages ago and never looked for a better solution. They're missing something fundamental about how dimensions interact. And this helps us how? Because, Captain," Harrison's eyes gleamed, "sometimes fresh eyes see what others have overlooked for millennia. And I think I know exactly who needs to see this data." Maya nodded, understanding. Somewhere in the depths of Luna Base, Dr. Sarah Chen and her team had been working on a revolutionary theory about dimensional mechanics. The Zintheri thought they were gods among primitives, but they had just handed humanity exactly what it needed: data on their supposedly superior technology, and the motivation to prove them wrong. "Send everything to Luna Base," Maya ordered. "Priority channels, maximum encryption, and contact Earth Command. Tell them." She looked out at the crystalline ship still dominating their view. "Tell them the game has changed. The hidden project." Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the heart of Luna Base's restricted Section 0, watching quantum particles dance through her revolutionary dimensional aperture array. The holographic display showed 7 distinct dimensional layers intersecting in ways that defied conventional physics. 3 years of work, countless failures, and now finally, proof that her theory was more than just mathematical speculation. Dr. Chen, her assistant, James Kumar, burst into the lab, tablet clutched in his hands. "Priority transmission from Station Gamma. You need to see this immediately." Sarah's fingers moved through the holographic controls, securing her latest test data before accepting the transmission. As she read, her expression shifted from curiosity to intense focus. The Zintheri's dimensional signature data scrolled across her screen, and with each passing moment, her eyes grew wider. "Get me General Martinez," she ordered, already running calculations in her head. "Now." Within minutes, the general's hologram materialized in the secure conference room. His weathered face showed the strain of recent events. "Doctor, I assume you've reviewed the data from first contact." "Yes, sir. And it confirms everything we theorized about dimensional mechanics." Sarah projected a complex mathematical model into the space between them. "The Zintheri are using brute force to tear through dimensional barriers. It's like using a sledgehammer to drive a nail. Effective, but incredibly wasteful and potentially dangerous. Can you explain it in terms a career soldier might understand?" Sarah nodded, adjusting the display. "Imagine reality as a book, General. Each page represents a dimension. The Zintheri's method is like stabbing through the entire book to get to a specific page. Our approach," she smiled, "is more like carefully turning to the exact page we want. And this helps us how? Because their method requires immense energy and creates significant dimensional disturbance. Ours, once perfected, would be virtually undetectable." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Sir, with this new data, I believe we can accelerate Project Threshold significantly. The Zintheri just handed us the missing pieces of our puzzle." General Martinez's hologram flickered as he leaned forward. "Timeline. 6 months to a working prototype, maybe less. But sir, there's something else." Sarah brought up the Station Gamma sensor logs. "The Zintheri's dimensional manipulation is creating microfractures in spacetime. They either don't know or don't care about the long-term consequences. Their technology isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous. Given enough time, It could begin destabilizing the dimensional boundaries on a massive scale. Jesus, Martins muttered. They're not just threatening Earth with subjugation. They're potentially threatening the stability of space-time itself, Sarah finished. But their arrogance has given us an advantage. They're so convinced of their superiority that they're not even trying to hide their technical signatures. Every moment their ships spend in our system gives us more data to work with. The general was silent for a long moment, his holographic form shimming slightly as he thought. What do you need? Unrestricted access to the quantum forge, priority requisition for metamaterials, and she took a deep breath. I need my brother, Dr. David Chen, the theoretical physicist from MIT. He doesn't have clearance. He's the one who first proposed the underlying mathematics of dimensional folding. Without his insight, we'll take twice as long to get this working. And sir, she met the general's gaze. I don't think we have that kind of time. Martinez nodded slowly. I'll make it happen. But doctor, understand something. The moment the Zintheri realize what we're developing, they'll try to stop us, Sarah finished, which is why we need to be smarter, faster, and above all, more subtle than they expect humanity to be capable of being. After the general's hologram faded, Sarah returned to her lab. The dimensional aperture array hummed softly, its quantum fields weaving patterns that only a handful of humans could truly understand. On her main screen, the Zintheri vessel's energy signature continued to pour in data about their dimensional technology. James approached cautiously. Dr. Chen, what are we going to do? Sarah's fingers danced across the controls, beginning a new simulation. We're going to prove that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology, James. It's our ability to see what others miss because they're too convinced of their own superiority. She smiled as the first results appeared. The Zintheri think they're gods playing with insects. Let's show them what happens when the insects turn out to be a lot smarter than they assumed. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Project Threshold began to accelerate. In labs and workshops, humans worked with quiet determination, their efforts masked by the very dimensional distortions the Zintheri were carelessly creating above. Sarah Chen watched her team and felt a fierce pride. The aliens thought humanity was primitive, barely worth noticing. Soon, they would learn that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could have made. Breaking through. David Chen stared at his sister's equations floating in the holographic display, his coffee long forgotten. 3 weeks had passed since his rushed clearance and transfer to Luna Base, and in that time, he barely slept. The math was beautiful, elegant, and utterly revolutionary. You've cracked it, he whispered, more to himself than to Sarah, who stood anxiously watching him. The dimensional boundaries aren't walls at all. They're more like frequencies. Sarah nodded eagerly. Exactly. The Zintheri are forcing their way through. But if we can match the resonant frequency of each dimensional layer, we can slide between them with barely any energy expenditure at all. David finished. He looked at his sister with newfound respect. This is why you needed my harmonic theory work. The siblings' discussion was interrupted by a priority alert. The lab's main screen activated, showing General Martinez's grim face. Doctors, we have a situation. The Zintheri just established their first guidance facility in the Sahara. They're demanding access to all our quantum research facilities. Sarah's face hardened. How long until they find us? The lunar mass is hiding your power signature for now, but their sensors are more sophisticated than we anticipated. Best estimate, 2 weeks, maybe less. David stepped forward. General, we need to show you something. He gestured, and the holographic display expanded to fill the room. We've figured out why their dimensional drive creates so much distortion. They're treating dimensions like solid barriers to be broken through. But look at this. The simulation showed waves of energy, each vibrating at a different frequency. As they adjusted, the waves began to harmonize, creating patterns of intersection points. Each dimension resonates at its own frequency, Sarah explained. Match that frequency perfectly, and you can transition between them with minimal energy and zero distortion. The Xanthari never discovered this because they found their brute force method first and stopped looking for alternatives. Martinez leaned forward. And you can build this. We already have. Sarah led them to an adjoining chamber where a circular device hung suspended in a quantum containment field. The prototype dimensional resonance drive. Small enough to fit in a fighter craft, but more efficient than anything the Xanthari have. How do you know it works? David grinned. Watch. He activated the device. The air around it seemed to ripple, and suddenly a coffee mug on a nearby table vanished, reappearing instantly on the other side of the room. That just traveled through the seventh dimension. Total energy expenditure was less than what it takes to run a microwave. The general's eyes widened. How soon can we scale this up? That's the beautiful part, Sarah said. We don't have to. Size doesn't matter when you're working with dimensional frequencies. We can install this in the Artemis prototype ship immediately. The real challenge will be keeping it hidden while we complete the integration. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. James Kumar rushed in, his face pale. Multiple Xanthari ships just appeared in orbit. They're demanding immediate access to all research facilities on Earth and Luna. They say, he swallowed hard, they say they've detected dangerous quantum experiments that require their direct supervision. They're scared, David realized. They've picked up traces of our work, but can't understand it. It doesn't fit their models. Martinez's expression turned calculating. How long do you need to complete the Artemis? 3 days for basic installation, Sarah answered. 5 for full integration and testing. You have 4. I'll direct the orbital defense fleet to run interference. We'll make it look like we're scrambling to comply with their demands, while hiding something completely different. The general's hologram flickered. Whatever happens, that ship has to be ready. The Xanthari are dropping all pretense of guidance. This is starting to look like a prelude to invasion. After the general signed off, Sarah turned to her brother. We need to modify the quantum shielding to mask our power signature completely. Ideas. David was already pulling up new calculations. If we tune it to the inverse frequency of their scanning technology, yes, that could work. We'd be invisible to them because they're not even looking for the right kind of energy. The next 4 days passed in a blur of activity. The Artemis, humanity's first dimensional resonance vessel, took shape in a hidden dock beneath the lunar surface. It was smaller than the massive Xanthari ships, sleek and efficient where they were crystalline and imposing. Every hour brought new demands from the aliens above, each more imperious than the last. On the 4th day, as Sarah and David made final adjustments to the dimensional drive, James rushed in with new intelligence. The Xanthari had discovered major quantum research facilities in Geneva and Beijing. Their response had been immediate and brutal. Both facilities were now under direct alien control, their human staff relegated to observers as crystalline beings dismissed decades of research as quaint attempts at understanding the universe. They still haven't found us, Sarah noted, making a final calibration. Our shielding is working. Better than working, David replied, checking the sensors. They'd swept this section of Luna 3 times now. As far as they can tell, this is just an abandoned mining facility. Their own dimensional distortions are masking our test signatures. Sarah stepped back, looking at their creation with pride. The Artemis hummed softly, its dimensional resonance drive pulsing with a soft blue light. Soon, very soon, the Xanthari would learn that they weren't the only ones who understood the fundamental nature of reality, and humanity's understanding went deeper than they could possibly imagine. The unveiling. The Xanthari ultimatum came without warning. Their crystalline ships now encircled Earth, their hulls shimmering with barely contained dimensional energies. On screens worldwide, Archensixtles form, pulsed with colors that conveyed both disappointment and threat. Humanity has proven itself incapable of responsible scientific development, the alien announced. Your continued attempts to experiment with forces beyond your comprehension leave us no choice. We are assuming direct control of all Earth's research facilities. Resistance will result in immediate demonstration of our technological superiority." In the command center of Luna Base, General Martinez watched the transmission with careful neutrality. "Status of the Artemis. Final checks complete," Sarah Chen reported, her voice steady despite the tension. "All systems nominal. The dimensional resonance drive is performing exactly as theorized." "Better than theorize," David added, not looking up from his console. "The efficiency ratings are off the charts. We're achieving clean dimensional transitions with less than 0.001% of the energy the Xanthari use." Martinez nodded slowly. "Time to show them what humanity is really capable of." "Dr. Chen, you're sure about piloting it yourself?" Sarah straightened. "The Artemis responds to thought commands based on deep understanding of dimensional mathematics. No one knows this system better than I do." "Very well." Martinez opened a secure channel. "All Earth Defense Forces, initiate Protocol Omega." I repeat, Protocol Omega is now active. Across the globe, humanity's apparent resistance began. Fighter jets launched, ground-based energy weapons powered up, and orbital platforms activated their shields. It was an impressive display of humanity's official military might, and a complete distraction from what was about to happen. Sarah strapped herself into the Artemis's pilot seat, her brother taking the position at the science station behind her. The ship hummed to life around them, its systems interfacing directly with their neural implants. Through the view screen, they could see the lunar surface above their hidden dock. "Remember," David said softly, "we only get one chance to surprise them. After that, they'll know what we can do. Then let's make it count." Sarah closed her eyes, connecting fully with the ship's dimensional drive. In her mind, she could see the frequencies of reality itself, each dimension vibrating with its own unique pattern. The mathematics she devoted her life to understanding flowed through her consciousness like music. Above them, the Xanthari ships were beginning their demonstration. Beams of crystalline energy lanced down from orbit, destroying key military installations with surgical precision. Their message was clear. Resistance was futile. "Artemis Actual, you are cleared for launch." Martinez's voice came through their comm. "Show them what humanity can really do." Sarah's fingers danced across the neural interface controls. Time to change the game. The Artemis rose silently through the lunar regolith, its quantum shielding making it completely invisible to conventional sensors. As they cleared the surface, Sarah could see the Xanthari fleet in orbit around Earth, their massive ships like crystalline stars against the black of space. "They've noticed us," David reported, "getting some interesting readings from their ships. They seem confused." On their comm screen, Archon Zixtal's form appeared, patterns shifting with what might have been amusement. "What's this?" "A single small vessel. Your species' desperation would be amusing if it weren't so sad." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Actually, Archon, we thought it was time to have a real discussion about dimensional mechanics. Your approach is rather primitive, don't you think?" Before the alien could respond, Sarah activated the dimensional resonance drive. The Artemis hummed, and reality seemed to bend around them, not with the brute force distortion of Xanthari technology, but with an elegant, almost musical precision. The ship vanished. In orbit around Earth, the Xanthari fleet's sensors went wild as they tried to track what had just happened. Their dimensional detection systems, calibrated to find the massive distortions of their own technology, were completely blind to the subtle frequency shifts the Artemis was using. The human ship reappeared directly between two Xanthari cruisers, then vanished again before their weapons could lock on. It materialized briefly near Earth's moon, then Mars, then in high orbit, dancing between dimensions with an ease that made the aliens' technology look crude by comparison. "Impossible." Zixtal's voice had lost its condescending tone. "Your species can't possibly understand dimensional mechanics better than you." Sarah finished, allowing the Artemis to reappear directly in front of the Archon's flagship. "Here's what you never figured out. Dimensions aren't barriers to be broken. They're frequencies to be tuned. Your civilization has been using a sledgehammer where a tuning fork would do. David's console lit up with warnings. Multiple Zentheri ships powering weapons. They're also trying to lock us into this dimensional plane. Let them try. Sarah's hands moved across the controls with practiced confidence. The Artemis phased partially into the seventh dimension, becoming ghostly and translucent. The Zentheri weapons fire passed harmlessly through them, their attempts to lock down dimensional space completely ineffective against technology they didn't even understand. Perhaps, Sarah broadcast to the entire Zentheri fleet, "It's time to reevaluate your assumptions about primitive species. We may be younger than you, but that just means we're not trapped by millennia of thinking we know everything." The Artemis danced through dimensions around the Zentheri fleet, demonstrating again and again that humanity had not only matched their dimensional manipulation technology, but had fundamentally surpassed it. Each transition was precise, elegant, and used a fraction of the energy the aliens' brute force method required. In the command center of Luna Base, General Martinez watched the sensor feeds with satisfaction. The Zentheri had come to Earth expecting to find primitive beings playing with forces they didn't understand. Instead, they had found something far more dangerous, a young species that understood those forces better than they did. Paradigm shift. The silence in Earth's orbit was deafening. The Zentheri fleet hung motionless, their crystalline ships no longer radiating the confident power they had displayed mere hours ago. On every communication channel, confusion and disbelief rippled through their ranks as they struggled to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Archon Zixtal's form flickered on the Artemis's main screen, its patterns showing clear agitation. "This is impossible. We've mastered dimensional manipulation for millennia. Your species barely understands quantum mechanics." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah replied, the Artemis hovering effortlessly between dimensional planes. "We don't carry the weight of millennia of assumptions. When we looked at dimensional mechanics, we saw it with fresh eyes. And we saw what you missed." David brought up a holographic display, transmitting it to the Zentheri fleet. "Your method of dimensional travel is causing microfractures in spacetime. Every transition, every jump, creates more damage. You've been so focused on proving your superiority that you never stopped to consider there might be a better way." The Archon's crystalline form shifted, patterns suggesting something almost like fear. "You're lying. Our technology is perfect." "Perfect." Sarah laughed softly. "Look at your own sensor data. Compare the dimensional stress readings from your ships to ours. You're burning a forest to clear a path. We're walking between the trees." On Luna Base, General Martinez watched the exchange with growing satisfaction. Status of the Zentheri fleet. "They're pulling back, sir," an analyst reported. "Their weapons are powered down, and they're actually starting to adjust their dimensional drives. They're trying to copy our frequency-based approach." Martinez allowed himself a small smile. "Not so primitive now, are we?" Back on the Artemis, Sarah received a priority alert from their sensors. "David, are you seeing this?" Her brother nodded, excitement clear in his voice. "The dimensional stress patterns around their ships, they're starting to harmonize. They're learning." Sarah opened a channel to the entire Zentheri fleet. "Your civilization has achieved incredible things, Archon. But progress doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it means stepping back and questioning your most basic assumptions. We'd be willing to share our research on dimensional harmonics as equals." The silence stretched for what felt like eternity. Finally, Zixtal's form stabilized, its patterns shifting to something more subdued. Perhaps we have allowed our certainty to blind us. The damage our methods have been causing, it is considerable, isn't it?" "It's not too late to change course," Sarah offered. "Humanity is young, yes, but sometimes youth sees what experience overlooks. We're offering you a chance to work together, to combine your centuries of knowledge with our fresh perspective." The change in the Zentheri was almost physical. Their ship's crystalline structures seemed to soften, the harsh angles becoming more fluid, more harmonious. When Zixel spoke again, the condescension was gone from its voice. "The convergence has existed for over 10,000 of your years," the Archon said slowly. "In all that time, we never questioned our fundamental understanding of dimensional mechanics. We saw your species' brief existence as a sign of ignorance. Instead, it proved to be your greatest strength." Over the next few hours, the situation transformed. The Zintheri withdrew their demands for control of Earth's research facilities. Instead, proposals for joint research projects began to flow. Their ships adjusted their dimensional drives one by one, adopting the harmonic principles humanity had discovered. In the Artemis cockpit, Sarah and David watched Earth rotate below them, its blue-white surface peaceful against the black of space. "Think they've learned their lesson?" David asked. "About underestimating humanity?" "Probably." Sarah smiled. "About the true nature of progress?" "That's a longer lesson, but at least they're finally ready to learn." General Martinez's hologram appeared in the cockpit. "Well done, doctors. The President has approved the establishment of a joint Earth-Zintheri Research Institute. Looks like you two will be busy teaching our new friends about dimensional harmonics." "Teaching and learning," Sarah corrected. "They still have centuries of knowledge to share. We just help them see it in a new light." As the Artemis began its return to Luna Base, Sarah thought about the events that had led to this moment. The Zintheri had come to Earth expecting to find primitives playing with forces beyond their understanding. Instead, they had found something far more powerful, a species that understood that true wisdom isn't about knowing everything, but about being willing to question anything. In the years that followed, humanity's breakthrough in dimensional mechanics would revolutionize space travel throughout known space. The Zintheri, humbled by their experience, became humanity's strongest advocates among the galactic civilizations. Their joint research would eventually lead to discoveries that neither species could have made alone. But perhaps the most important lesson was one that would echo through the cosmos. Never underestimate a species that questions everything, especially your assumptions about their limitations. For in the vast expanse of space, the most powerful force isn't technology or knowledge, but the willingness to see the universe with new eyes.